Everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cutting straight through the daily noise and headlines to really connect the dots between some of the most volatile geopolitical flashpoints in the Middle East and the massive, overarching power shifts happening all across the globe. Now, before we jump in, just a really quick note, we are looking at this purely through an analytical, strategic lens. We're not taking any political sides here today whatsoever. Instead, we're just impartially breaking down the strategic motives, the geography, and the raw economic realities that are fundamentally reshaping our world order straight from our source material. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with 1. The US-Iran power struggle. Then 2. Gaza, a real estate vision. 3. The shift to neocolonialism. 4. Defining strategic autonomy. And finally, 5. The world's friend.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1, the US-Iran power struggle. Drawing on some really fascinating recent strategic analysis from experts like Ankit Avasti, we actually have to start by asking a highly specific geographic question, and that is, why is Karg Island so incredibly critical right now? Our sources point to this exact location as the ultimate geographic leverage point. Because you see, the tension we're watching isn't just about ideology, it's deeply, deeply rooted in who actually controls the physical pathways of the global economy.
The analysis here suggests that the current U.S. strategy, and particularly a proposed Trump strategy, is designed to avoid massive casualties. Basically, absolutely no boots on the ground. It's a major lesson learned from past conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? Instead, the ultimate goal is total dominance over global choke points. By eyeing places like Karg Island, the objective is to literally control the Strait of Hormuz. And why does that matter? Because whoever controls those shipping routes controls the global flow of oil. And even more crucially, they hold the ultimate leverage over China's supply chains, specifically when we're talking about the rare earth minerals you need to win the global AI race. It's all about securing maximum leverage just without a traditional ground invasion.
Now, impartially analyzing the source material, we see this really fascinating divergence in the ultimate motives between two close allies. On one side, Israel's primary motive, which is driven by the need for regional stability to secure some massive upcoming infrastructural megaprojects, is total regime change in Iran. They essentially want the threat neutralized entirely. But on the flip side, the U.S. motive is much more focused on global logistical dominance. They want to control those shipping routes and choke points to maintain absolute hegemony against rising Eastern powers.
Moving right along to Section 2, Gaza, a real estate vision.
To really understand this next phase, our sources urge us to just temporarily put aside the historical and religious narratives and look strictly at land and logistics. Quote, "This is entirely a dispute over a highly valuable plot of land and real estate." That captures Ankit Avasti's startlingly direct analogy perfectly. By framing Gaza as prime real estate, all these geopolitical maneuvers suddenly start making a lot more sense. It kind of strips away the complex rhetoric and forces us to look at the immense strategic value of the dirt itself.
So, what actually makes this specific spot so incredibly vital? Well, think about it. Gaza possesses completely unobstructed access to the Mediterranean Sea. It sits right in immediate proximity to the Suez Canal and the Gulf of Aqaba. It is quite literally the natural geographical gateway connecting Western maritime power directly to Asian trade routes. If a superpower is looking to set up an undisputed stronghold to monitor and control trade between the East and West, honestly, this exact plot of land is historically and geographically unmatched.
But the really crucial point here is the sheer contrast of the transformation vision being analyzed in our sources. Right now, in its current state, Gaza's Mediterranean coastline is bound by a strict blockade. Multi-billion-dollar shipping absolutely cannot dock there. But the sources highlight this proposed vision, specifically attributed to Donald Trump's real estate mindset, of clearing the area to build a futuristic Dubai-like 3D city. And this wouldn't just be a shiny new city for the sake of it. The analysis suggests it would function effectively as an independent American base in the Middle East, completely bypassing the need to rely on regional allies to control those vital trade routes.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit for Section 3, the shift to neocolonialism. So, we've looked at the micro-level tactics in Iran and Gaza. Now we need to understand the macro philosophy driving all of this. Our sources point out that we are kind of exiting the era where superpowers were perfectly happy just spreading their influence through soft power, corporations, or diplomacy. Neocolonialism, at least in this context, is defined as a harsh, abrupt return to the pursuit of absolute global power. It's an unapologetic push for direct territorial dominance and total control over the world's physical assets.
According to the analysis, American officials like Marco Rubio have actually expressed genuine disbelief at past empires, like the British, for example, for willingly relinquishing their colonies. The prevailing sentiment is basically, you were fools to let it go. We must return to a state of absolute power. This brilliantly illustrates a massive ideological pivot. Certain Western powers are actively dropping the facade of the post-colonial world, and they're attempting to unilaterally reclaim absolute control over global resources.
Which brings us to Section 4, defining strategic autonomy.
So, in a world that is aggressively shifting back toward absolute, unipolar power grabs, where does that leave nations trying to balance the scales? Well, first, we have to clear up a major misconception. As highlighted by military analyst L.T. Call in the render, India is never truly neutral. Neutrality implies passive detachment, right? Just sitting back, doing absolutely nothing during a crisis. Strategic autonomy, on the other hand, is active engagement. It means having a mind of your own. It means making highly calculated, independent moves based purely on mutual benefit and national interest, without ever permanently binding yourself to a single superpower alliance.
And honestly, India doesn't really have any other choice because of its multipolar reality. Just look at the flow of its dependencies for a second. India relies heavily on China for manufacturing, it relies on Arab nations for oil, and it relies on this incredibly complex web of the US, Israel, and Russia for its critical defense technologies. On top of all that, it requires a strong relationship with Iran to access Central Asia via the Chabahar port. India's entire economy and security are reliant on a multipolar world. Choosing just one side would literally mean cutting off the very supply chains that keep the nation functioning.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, the world's friend.
This incredibly intricate balancing act leads us to exactly how India operates globally as a stabilizing counterweight. Best-selling author Simon Sinek actually highlighted this specifically during his analysis of global trust. He observed that while America's narrative has become kind of fuzzy lately, India has adopted this crystal-clear national narrative, we are the world's friend. The philosophy is simple, but man is it powerful. If everyone comes together, everyone grows. It's a diplomatic strategy that explicitly rejects that rigid us versus them mentality of Cold War 2.0.
And, this isn't just some catchy PR slogan. Our sources detail exactly how this autonomous support works in action. For instance, when global oil markets were literally on the brink of collapse, military analysts note that the United States practically begged India to step in and buy Russian oil to stabilize the prices. And India did it, effectively saving the global market from a total disaster. At the same time, India supplies critical medicine to African nations during crises, maintains advanced defense deals with Israel, and strategically absorbs short-term fuel price hikes domestically to shield its wider economy from global shocks. They act as the world's indispensable shock absorber.
Which leaves us with a final, absolutely crucial question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. We've seen how superpowers are racing to control the world's choke points and reclaim absolute dominance. We've also seen how India is desperately working to keep the global system functioning through strategic autonomy. But in a world aggressively shifting back to a game of unilateral empires, how long can one nation successfully balance the ultimate multipolar tightrope? It's a question that will undoubtedly define the next decade of global history. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope this provided a really clear, structured understanding of the massive forces shaping our world today. Keep learning and stay focused.